If you want to know the history of that house and why it's like that, stay tuned. I'm going to start all the way from the beginning. It's a brief history on the house, but I'm going to start all the way at the Assateague Bridge. So I'll see you there. I'm on the Verzano Bridge now. This bridge goes into Assateague from the mainland. The mainland is right behind me, and then Assateague is over this way. So this bridge was built in 1964, and it was built by the state of Maryland. There was stuff with the federal government that was involved. The federal government in '65 was taking over the National Seashore, the part of Assateague. So it's pretty much split. You have like the state side, which is over this way, and then the federal side is all down that way. So prior to 1964, the only way that you could get from the mainland to the island was on a ferry. And they would have a ferry would transport people over. There was cars that could go on it too, but that was the only way that you could get there. Now the thing is, in 1964, it was also the same time that Bob was building his house on the island. And when the bridge was done, they would transport all the lumber from Atkins Lumber in Berlin, and they would bring it over to the island, and Bob would come down from his house. He drove I believe it was like a little red Chevy pickup truck down the beach. He'd pick up all the lumber and all the materials and then drive it all the way back to the house. And he would just do trips back and forth. He hired a couple day laborers from Berlin that would come over and help. And yeah, he built the house. Bob is an extremely smart guy. He went to MIT, he went to Harvard, he went to Georgetown. So he knew, from what it came across to me, was he was very analytical, but he knew exactly what he was doing and extremely smart. So now we're gonna head back out. We're gonna go to the house and then talk about the house and the history of it and all that. And yeah, so we'll see you back on the beach. Welcome back, everybody. This is part 2 of the series that I've been doing on the Clements Beach House, and this is just a history of it real quick, just kind of a rundown of the house and why it's like that and the condition that it is and actually what happened to it. So to start off, the main portion of the house, the original portion, was this side. It was built in '64. The entire house was renovated in 1968. That's where the second half was put on. The house itself had no air conditioning, but it did have baseboard heat. And if you look, it's kind of hard to tell right now, but if you look, the front part was all windows. It was all Anderson windows throughout. When Bob built it, he said that if he's going to do it, he's going to do it right, and he did exactly that. I mean, this house, as it stands right now, has been out in the open for almost 30 years. All the other houses on the island have cover, like the Musser's house back there and all the lodges that are all back over this way. They're all back in the dunes, in the woods. They can't be seen. You have to really go search for them. But they got tree cover. They're very covered. This house is the only house that is actually wide open. And if you think about it, the construction that he did on this stands true to who he is, because it's 30 years left in the open through the storms, the hurricanes, the wind, snowstorms. A couple years ago, we had like 2 feet of snow. And the house has withstood everything. For 30 years to not be touched, and this is what it looks like now, is pretty incredible to me. If you have seen my last video, you know that I've been talking to John. It's Bob's son. And John was mentioning the pilings that were put in. Bob put all those in with no heavy machinery. So it just shows that, I mean, they're still there. The house is still level. It's crazy, the amount of work that he did to it. But anyway, about the family is, it's Bob and Mary, and then they have 2 sons, Stephen and John, and then their daughter, Patty. So Bob built the house as a summer house, but it was actually used year-round. It wasn't just for the summer. They were here in the winters too, so it was a place for them to get away. They were from Northern Virginia area, so they would travel from Northern Virginia. They would go down Route 404, if you're familiar with that, up by the Bay Bridge, get fresh produce. They would stop at the A&P grocery store in Berlin, stock up on all their supplies and food that they needed. And on the way in, they would keep a beach car. There was a Sunoco in downtown Berlin, and they would keep a car there so that they could drive on to the beach to come to the house. So like I said, the house The house, that part was built in 64. That was 68, completely renovated, baseboard heat. It has 7 bedrooms. It could sleep up to 14. And if you look about halfway up, there's a board that runs across. The kitchen was all the way up at the top. And that's how they had it. So from the kitchen, you could see all the way out to the ocean that was all the way out there. So when the family was using the house, they would do lots of crabbing. They had a boathouse that was out back. They did a lot of water skiing in the bay. They would go swimming in the ocean, the breakfast that they had. It was a lot of family time at the house. There was no phone here. They had a ship-to-shore radio that they would use, and you would have to call a dispatcher that was in Salisbury that would dispatch them to whoever they needed to talk to. As far as TV-wise, so they had a little small black and white TV. Bob would use it to watch the local news at night, and that was it. So it was a very quiet place for the family to vacation. I can only imagine what it was like, just how quiet it was out here. There's nobody out here. I mean, it's just the family enjoying their home. So the way that the home is now, the Park Service, well, I'll back up. Assateague was going to be developed into a housing development, and there was already houses out here that were being built. There was the hunting lodges that were here, the Clements House, the Musser's house, which is back there, and there was a big storm that came through in the 60s. And it basically, I think it was 1963, and when the storm came through and knocked a couple of houses into the ocean, the Park Service and the federal government said that enough, they're not going to build out here anymore, and that was going to be the end of it. So they shut it down, they turned it into a national park, and then they took over all the homes. Now what they did when they took them over, they gave them a fair wage for the homes, but a lot of them, the Clements did it, I know the Buntings did, everybody did it. Everybody took the government to court to try to get either stall time to see if they could stay out here longer, or to get as much money as they could, rightfully so. I would do the same thing. I know you probably would too. So they all went to court. They all tried to get as much money as they could. In return, they were given 25-year rights to use the house. So the government took over this house in 1973. So in 1973, when they took over, they leased the house back to the family at $0 per year, and they're given the 25-year rights. So after that, in 1998, I think it was January of 98, was when it was the last time that it was used. They were told that they were given a date and a time that they had to leave. And on that date and time, they left. And that was it. That was the end of it. The Park Service never maintained the homes. They didn't to the lodges either. They just let nature take its course, and that's how it ended up the way that it is. Now, some information on the house. This corner right here was the master bedroom. They had up top, there used to be a deck that was up there that they could oversee into the ocean. Like I was explaining, the living room is right here, where this was all windows, and on the top side of it was the kitchen. So the kitchen was all the way at the top, so you could overlook and you could oversee the ocean. Now, Bob was very strategic where he put the house. He bought an acre first, and then he bought 33 more. And he was basically using the sand dunes as cover from the ocean. So he's very, very, very smart the way that he did it. Between how he put the pilings in, it has septic. It did not have well water, but he dug sort of his own well, which Bob's ingenuity on the well is... it's crazy. The well does not go all the way down. It's more of a box that uses I think the sand to filter the water, and somehow he had a pump there, or like a water pump or something that would pump the water into the house. So it's, yeah, the way that Bob did it it's incredible, and it just shows who he was. Bob is unfortunately no longer alive, but the way that he built this house is just, it's incredible. But John was saying that this was the master bedroom, and then John's was behind that. And then right next to John's, there was a radio room that was on the back side. It's kind of hard to see, but the radio room was where the radio was that they could talk to everybody. I'll try to make it back here. So this was John's room. And then there's some boards covering. It was right there. That was the radio room. This was a deck. And then it was stairs that went up to the kitchen up top. All of this vegetation that's right here was not here. It was all wide open. And this was the garage down here, right in front. And this is the, John was saying that his dad kept a lot of spare wood in here, and the wood is actually still there. So I can show you. I mean, just look at the structure of how Bob did it. It's incredible. Now this was inside the garage. They had a garage door, and the entrance to the house was through the garage, and they would go up the steps right here. And that went in there. I'm not going to go up there because a lot of it is falling apart, and I don't want to fall through. He was saying this was to the, I believe, the water pump. To the water. Yeah, the pump is still there. Absolutely incredible the way that Bob did this. But here was all of his spare wood. Before they put the addition on, the second half, which was all this half, he had a little trap door that he would lift up, and through there you could sweep all the dirt and debris back down here. So you didn't have to like vacuum or anything else. If you can see, there's stairs right here. Those stairs went up into the kitchen. And the kitchen, like I said, was all the way up at the top. So anyway, that's the brief history of the house. The series is going to go into a couple different ones of exactly like how he built it, how he was getting materials and all that stuff, and then what they did out here. I'm going to do another one of their boathouse that I was just talking about, that their boathouse that's back behind me, and different stories that he has, everything. So yeah, we're going to start doing those. I'm trying to get some pictures of the house of when they were using it and what they did. So it should be a pretty good series. So anyway, thanks for watching, and a huge thank you to John and Patty for helping out with this. It's been amazing hearing the stories and just sharing details of the house and what they did here. So anyway, thanks for watching, and yeah, I'll see you on the next one.